Hi Nev, thanks for joining me today. It's been several months since the APCM, and I know we both thought it would be good to have a chat about some of the key messages from the finance presentation and to share them with the church.
Hi John, always a pleasure. That's right, the APCM is one of the best opportunities we have to update the wider church community about what is going on at St Peter's, what our plans are and how we're doing financially, which of course largely determines how many things we can do and how quickly we can move on them.
If I remember well, from a financial point of view, there was a bit of a mixed message this year. Obviously we had the great news last year of the gift of £100,000 from the diocese, which was a real godsend and increased our overall reserve significantly. However, you also pointed out that, in line with the diocese's wishes, the PCC had agreed to put the majority of this gift towards the building project, and that leaving this gift aside, we actually spent more than we received again in 2021. Is that right?
That's absolutely correct, John. The gift from the diocese, which the PCC has decided to put into a separate fund, the Parish Investment Fund, so that it doesn't get mixed up with our normal day-to-day income and expenditure, will certainly allow us to move ahead more quickly with the building project, especially as we have now engaged architects to help develop proposals for how the building might look and operate in the future. It's also worth saying that the PCC agreed that up to 20% of that fund could also be used on other mission or outreach activities. And for example, that has enabled us to re-employ Kath Jones as Children's and Family Missioner in 2022, for example. You're also right in saying that excluding the gift from the diocese, we did spend more than we received in income in 2021. Not to the same extent as we had in 2020 though, and the deficit in 2021 was smaller than the PCC had budgeted. It's fair to say that 2020 and 2021 were far from normal years, but the important point is that although we have come through these 2 years and we still have a reasonable level of reserves which allow us to keep operating and doing outreach activities, we can't keep on indefinitely spending more than we receive each year.
Oh, thank you, Nev. And I'm sure that is a point that everyone who was able to attend the APCM will have taken on board. I guess it also brings us on to the subject of donations. I remember from your presentation that you showed how donations represent the major source of income for St Peter's, and that although they have been generally increasing year on year, we are seeing signs of them plateauing or even falling back slightly this year.
Unfortunately, that's also correct. As a church, we are very dependent on donations from individuals and families within our congregations to meet our expenses. And we are blessed to have some very generous donors within our church family, which is wonderful. But it's also fair to say that it would be even better if we could encourage a larger number of people within the church family to start giving.
Perhaps it's worth reminding everyone, Nev, that while you provide regular updates to the PCC and me on the state of our finances, including donations, you don't share any individual or family's giving details, only overall numbers and amounts. For me, as vicar, as you know, I absolutely don't want to know who gives and who doesn't, or how much anyone gives. And I'm very happy that you keep that information to yourself.
Absolutely.
So let's remind ourselves first of how important donations are to St Peter's in terms of our overall income.
Okay, we can see here that general fund donations have increased from 54,000 in 2018 to 75,000 in 2021, and we budgeted for just over 80,000 this year. We can also see that income from donations far outweighs our other sources of income, mainly the cafe currently. Incidentally, this also highlights why the building project is so important to the future of St Peter's, as it should allow us to develop other revenue streams from the building.
On the face of it, that appears to be a positive picture of our donation income growing year on year.
It is, and of course we are still a relatively young church, albeit in an old body or building. When the parish of Chester St Peter was created in 2015, although we were a smallish congregation, there were a good number of mature Christians who were already committed to tithing and supporting the church financially, so we did start with a healthy giving base. The expectation, of course, was that as the congregation grew, new members would also become new givers.
Our numbers were certainly growing year on year, at least until coronavirus came along. But are you saying that we haven't seen the increase in donations that we might have expected over this period?
Yes, though there can obviously be many reasons why someone who has joined the church and become a member of the church family hasn't yet decided or felt able to start supporting St Peter's financially. I've been keeping a track on the overall trend in regular giving by comparing the situation in March each year. In March 2017, we had 13 regular households as donors with an average monthly donation of just over £170, which equated to a total monthly income, including gift aid, of just over £2,600. In March 2021, there were 26 regular donors with a slightly higher average monthly donation of £186, meaning a total monthly income, including gift aid, of just over £5,700. But in March 2022, the number of regular donors had fallen back slightly to 23, and although the average donation had increased, the total monthly income had also fallen back by around £200 to just over £5,500.
That is clearly a concern from a financial point of view. We are all living through challenging times at the moment with a major cost of living crisis, and this must impact on people's capacity to support St Peter's financially.
I'm sure that is true, and as I said earlier, we are blessed to have a core of faithful and generous givers amongst our numbers. However, the flip side of this coin is that it means we risk being overly reliant on a relatively small number of households, and if circumstances changed in one or two of those households, it could quickly have a significant impact on our overall finances. Just to give an idea, although we still have 23 households regularly donating, the top 6 of these represent almost 50% of total donations.
Oh, thank you, Nev. That is helpful in understanding where we are today. Talking about giving in churches is always a sensitive topic. Although it is sensitive, it is so important to talk about it. There are several reasons for this. Firstly, not talking about things can be really unhealthy for a family or a community, but it is equally important to talk about them in the right way. Secondly, the Bible says that giving financially blesses the giver and helps us with how we understand all things to do with money. It literally blesses us to give to good causes and to the church family. Thirdly, people invest in things they believe in. We believe in a vision of seeing Chester transformed by God's love through our communities, outreaches, relationships and events for unity. We want to see this happen, and that means we invest in it both with our time and our finance. A bit like buying shares. We want to see that vision grow and to see a return for our giving. Fourthly, God tells us to do it explicitly. And when God tells us to do something, we're meant to get on and do it. Finally, we have financial needs as a church. And this is the main way that God has set aside for us to pay for them. Isn't he clever?
Thank you, John. That was really helpful.
Well, thank you, Nev. So for those people who would like to give to St Peter's or increase their giving, how do they go about doing that?
Well, the best way would be to speak to me about setting up a standing order, because standing orders are actually the most efficient way for us as a church to receive the money, because it gives that level of predictability about money coming in. But there are other ways as well. People can go onto the website and make one-off donations through the donations page on the website. And of course we do have a donations box and the capacity for cashless giving within the building. So any of those options are great, but the best one would really be to think about setting up a standing order if that's what you feel God is calling you towards.
Thank you so much for watching this video today. We hope you found it helpful. We love being church with all of you and are excited about what God has planned for the city of Chester, St Peter's Church and for each of you. So it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me.